Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. I'm not talking about potatoes. If you've ever made a potato gnocchi, let me introduce you to its faster and easier cheesy cousin. Hello shepherds, welcome back. If you're new here, hello. This is where we talk all things sheepy. My name is Megan, and today we're transforming our pasture potatoes liquid goodness into a homegrown dinner. So let's talk ingredients first. I'm using a combination of cheeses. I'll put the links in the description, so if you want to take that dairy side quest, you can. The main thing when using substitutions, though, is to be mindful of the types of cheeses. Some of the store-bought cheeses use stabilizers to add that body to the cheese, and because of this, it may be trickier to use some of those store-bought ricottas for this recipe. It'll still be tasty, but maybe not choice yummy. Okay, so I have some skimmed sheep milk ricotta. I like to skim my milk. If you don't like to, that's okay. Either one works. I've drained it already overnight, resting in a cheesecloth, in a basket, in a fridge. It'll lose some weight overnight, so especially at first. So don't forget to check on it and pour off the whey to encourage better drainage. You can reserve that whey for other recipes or even the piggies. We want our ricotta super dry for this recipe for the fluffiest of gnocchis. We'll also need a well-aged grating style cheese. I like to use the Ricotta Salata, but I'm down to like my last nub from last year. So I've decided to enlist my Franken Manchego. I like to play with rind development. So this is a homemade ash rub with various molds that have colonized it. With hard cheeses, they can look really gnarly on the outside, but because of the cheese curds are so knit together, there's no place for that mold to take hold on the inside. But the rind does add flavor. So for store-bought substitutions, Parm works really well as Romano cheeses. Also, let me know if you want to make your own funky rinds. I know it's not for everyone, but it's really fun to experiment with. And you never know, maybe you find something that you love. Okay, so I'm going to slice off the rind for my family. They don't like the rinds as much, but if it was just me eating, I would grate the rind in as well. It's kind of like bread crusts. Are you a bread crust eater, or do you prefer it sliced off? One of the things I love about aging cheeses is how it's almost parchment or vellum paper, the way the aged cheeses get, and when they're grated, they look almost like plastic, which is kind of funny to me. And it tastes so good already. Grated, it also almost disappears on my tongue, and it's salty and savory and nutty even. Okay, so now that the hard part is over, let's mix up our gnocchi. In a medium to large bowl, let's add our drained ricotta. I'm using about 5 ounces or 167 grams of ricotta drained. It's like a hefty cup abouts. And we want to mash our cheese well. With draining our cheese, it tends to form quite the lump. So we're just breaking it up. Think of it like a sifting process, but for cheese. So next we're going to toss in our grated cheese. I did squish my cheese as I was grating it to fit that bowl while I was grating. So now it's time to fluff those clumps out too. So we're going to combine our young cheese with our old cheese, and I'm breaking up those clumps as I run across them. It's looking pretty good now, so it's time to add our spices and herbs. So I'm just adding something light, so some salt, pepper, and garlic, 1 teaspoon each. We're going to mix it in really well, and then we're going to add in our binder. I'm using our backyard chicken eggs, so for this, the equivalent would be 1.5 store-bought eggs, but I've done this with 2 bigger eggs as well. It works out really well, and it doesn't taste eggy either. The gnocchi tends to be a little yellower, but it's still cheesy. So let's grab 2 eggs. I found the eggs tend to be rather thick, so I'm straining them around extras to make sure that there's no clumps of egg whites and that the cheese is well coated in our egg. Next, let's add our flour. About 3/4 of a cup or 102 grams total, but I'm also adding in small amounts at a time so I can adjust to the level of stickiness that I want. The key is to add just enough flour that you need and not too much extra. I store my flour pretty packed, so depending on how packed your flour is, or how drained the ricotta is, or even the humidity in the air, you may need to adjust your flour. but this is a pretty forgiving style of gnocchi. And we like recipes that can handle these variations of backyard produce or like the changing seasons or weather. So while we're working on our dough, let's go ahead and start boiling our pot of water, and don't forget to salt your water. That'll help give it some extra flavor. So let's mix up our dough until it comes together pretty well. It may be a little sticky, but it'll pick up more flour later on as we roll it. So let's go ahead and tip out our dough and roll it on a well-floured surface. I like to knead it a little more here. If it doesn't come together, let's add some more flour. But it's looking pretty good here. Next, we're gonna make our gnocchi noodles a bit easier to work with. We're gonna divide this dough ball up into 4 pieces, and then we're gonna roll each piece into a cylindrical shaped object, and then cut our cylinder in half. It doesn't have to be equal. We just want to set one piece aside so we can work with it easier. I want to roll these out to about the thickness of my thumb. Rolling out with our hands, it can get pretty long in short order. It may help to flour your hands lightly, so if you're having too many problems with stickiness. And then once our tube is rolled out to our preferred thickness, we're gonna then cut them up into little pillows. So as they are now, they're really good to go and to cook or to freeze for later on. But if you wanna get extra fancy or form them to catch that sauce, we can shape them with the back of a fork or a wooden pasta board. Either works really well, and this can get really quick. I find it helps to have my fingertips lightly floured. This keeps our pillows from sticking to our fingers as we press our pillows into their form. Also, when we're pressing, don't forget we're using a more shearing force when shaping our pillows. I find it helps to tilt the board or with the fork, work with it upside down so that the gnocchi will roll right off and away, coating itself lightly on flour at the same time. And so we're gonna do a technique of a mash and flick. This makes really quick work, and before we know it, we're done. I'm making this for dinner later on as well, so it helps to dry them a little and store them in a single layer. I don't want them sticking or piled up together because of the humidity in the air will cause them to stick. So if you aren't going to cook them immediately, freeze them in batches in a single layer on a pan. And then on a tired day, we can pull out a pack and then boil them up, and then dinner's ready in a matter of minutes. So let's go ahead and get cooking. I'm going to show you a simple way to turn these up a level 2. In our pot of salted boiling water, we're going to add our pillows, or our extra fancy gnocchi, and they're gonna fall to the bottom at first, and when they start to float, they're ready to pull and then toss in some sauce. But for fun, I wanted to pan fry them, so they're more like pot stickers, I guess. Okay, so in a hot pan, we're gonna add our butter. I'm using some shipiki or clarified butter, and one of the things with using clarified butter or shipiki is it can be a little deceptive where it's so still and there's no movement, so it can be hard to tell if the oil's hot. So a simple way to check it without using water and causing a splatter is if there are little bubbles forming around our wooden chopstick or a spoon. If it's hot, I'm going to see super tiny bubbles all around the wood. Okay, so ours is ready to go ahead and add in our gnocchi. So let's go ahead and toss them in. Mine are sticking a little to the pan, so I'm going to use my spoon to lift up the flavor bits and add a little bit more shipiki to deep fry our gnocchis. This isn't a diet food, and I'm trying to lightly fry them rather than deep fry, but it's a really filling and flavorful dish. I know I'm fooling with these gnocchis too much, and it's so hard to not poke at them and move them around, but for the best browning, it does help to let them sit for a bit, and then flip to brown to the other side. Overall, I'd say this step takes about 1 to 2 minutes per side, and then they're ready to serve and eat. To garnish, I'm grating a little bit of cheese, and if you have any fresh herbs like chives or oregano available, it'll give you that beautiful pop of green. Unfortunately, most everything here is still frozen to the ground and buried under snow. Again, the daffodils are starting to pop as well as the swamp dandelions, so spring's almost here. Okay, so anyways, taste-wise, boiled, these are really good. They're soft and cheesy and nutty. There's hints of garlic, and pan frying them in the shipiki, on the other hand, gives them this crispy shell that's so pillowy soft on the inside. Flavor-wise, it did change a little. Now there's large notes of this super butteriness that's still very nutty, but packed with this garlic flavor. And so for tonight as well, we're probably gonna just toss them in some red pasta sauce. So that's about it. It's a pretty quick dish. So how do you prefer your pasta? Are you team boiled or team fried? Each style has such a fun flavor, and it's a pretty fun and versatile dish. And I hope you give it a try. And if you made it this far, don't forget an extra big thank you. I appreciate you. And I hope you enjoyed the video and have a good start to your weekend. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave me a dinner plate emoji if you made it this far. And I'll see you in the next one. Ta-tas.